we are located.
We are currently here at Kanisu.
When the news breaks, we are there. In the heart of matters arising, we follow through with the right question. Don't miss a beat with our in-depth news analysis. From breaking news, special feature stories, latest news, we bring you the stories that matter. Our team of immersed reporters bring you the news as it happens. Join us every 6 a.m., 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. each day for a comprehensive look at the stories beyond the headlines.
3, 2, 1.
You're watching ABC News GH.
ABC News GH, your trusted source for news.
Good morning and welcome to your Election Poll Center. This is ABC Headlines. I am Abuna Mante. Coming up in the headlines, President Akufo-Addo has urged Ghanaians to repost confidence in Dr. Bawumia, saying that the Vice President is ready to lead. Meanwhile, the IGP has called on Ghanaians to be vessels of peace ahead of the elections. Still to come in the headlines, the Electricity Company of Ghana has issued an urgent notice to customers using their NURI prepaid meters, advising them to top up their meter credit sufficiently to last at least 1 month. We have these and many more coming up. Do stay tuned. Now into the headlines, the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, has issued an urgent notice to customers using the NURI prepaid meters, advising them to top up their meter credit sufficiently to last at least 1 month. This measure is to prevent vending disruptions during an ongoing upgrade of the standard transfer specifications metering system, which includes the NURI prepayment system. In an announcement released on Saturday, November 23, ECG highlighted the critical nature of the upgrade, which aims to ensure uninterrupted vending services for customers. This is a crucially mandatory STC upgrade designed to ensure uninterrupted vending service, ECG stated, urging customers to cooperate by topping up their meters in advance. The company assured customers of its readiness to facilitate the upgrade process and encourage them to reach out for assistance if needed. The STC upgrade is part of ECG's efforts to modernize its infrastructure and enhance service delivery by ensuring that customers' meters are compatible with the latest vending protocols. The upgrade seeks to streamline the electricity payment process and reduce potential disruptions. The company has called on customers to comply with the advisory and assist in making the exercise a success. some election-related matters, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has expressed concerns that completing the Agenda 111 hospital project could be at risk if the National Democratic Congress (NDC) returns to power, citing their previous criticisms of the initiative. He cautioned that crucial projects initiated by his administration, including Agenda 111, may be abandoned should Ghanaians vote for former President John Dramani Mahama and the NDC in the upcoming elections. The president reaffirmed his commitment to ensuring the commissioning of some Agenda 111 projects before his tenure ends. Speaking to professional bodies in the Ashanti region on Sunday, November 25, President Akufo-Addo urged voters to carefully consider the progress made under his government and the potential setbacks of a change in leadership. He said, "Before I leave office on January 7, 2025, I would have completed and outdoored some of them, Sewa Infectious Disease Center, and handed over for use. Komfo Anokye Maternity and Children's Hospital is 68% completed. Asante Achim District Hospital is completed. Kumewu District Hospital is completed." With the way some people talk of these projects, the people of Ashanti think very carefully for December 7. I am convinced that some people will come into office and stop a lot of these projects. The Agenda 111 is not in their hearts. Those that are not finished will not be finished. We have seen it before. Do not let us make that mistake this time, the president said. Still on elections, President Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has expressed strong confidence in Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, describing him as capable and well prepared, a leader ready to guide Ghana to greater heights. The president urged Ghanaians to support Dr. Bawumia's bid for the presidency, highlighting his extensive experience and clear vision for advancing the country's development. Speaking at a gathering of professional bodies in Kumasi on Sunday, November 24, President Akufo-Addo emphasized the critical role that the Ashanti region plays in ensuring electoral success for the New Patriotic Party. He cautioned against repeating the perceived mistake of 2008 when the NPP lost power, urging the region to rally behind Dr. Bawumia and secure victory in the 2024 elections. On elections, presidential aspirant Alan Tremantin has unveiled a bold plan to reform the free SHS program, addressing its long-term sustainability and providing structured pathways for graduates to transition into tertiary education or the job market. During the Presidential Encounters 2024, hosted by the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation on November 22, Mr. Tremantin emphasized the need for a comprehensive review of the policy to ensure its objectives are fully realized. The free SHS program is a great policy, and I doubt whether any government would discontinue it, he noted. However, he cautioned that the program in its current form lacks provisions for life after SHS, posing the critical question, after free SHS, what next? Mr. Tremantin argued that providing free education without clear pathways for graduates undermines the policy's potential impact. To address the gap, the founder and leader of the Movement of Change outlined reforms under his Great Transformational Plan, GTP, focusing on 5 key areas: financial sustainability, infrastructure development, curriculum improvement, capacity building for educators, and transitioning graduates into tertiary education and the workforce. Meanwhile, defected NPP member and independent presidential candidate Alan Tremantin stated that the New Patriotic Party is a declining party and would be unpopular after this year's elections. According to him, persons who are now leading the party are sinking deep into a hole.
Sometimes you don't want to mention this in public, but I can say boldly on air that 60% of all the thriving local businessmen, they all came through my hands, both men, women,
Amen.
And at that time, I did what I call positive action for women, because I deliberately, I'm happy about your desire to ensure that the affirmative action bill comes into free.
I think it's a law now.
It's a law now, but she was talking about
the implementation. Yes.
I'm saying that I'm also a firm believer in the implementation of that. Many years ago, when I started training and building entrepreneurs, my record is there. I mean, sometimes you don't want to mention this in public, but I can say boldly on air that 60% of all the thriving local businessmen, they all came through my hands, both men, women,
Amen.
And at that time, I did what I call positive action for women, because both men, women,
Amen.
And at that time, I did what I call positive action for women, because I deliberately identified women and brought them into my program.
Okay.
I'm happy about your desire to ensure that the affirmative action bill comes into free.
I think it's a law.
The Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu Dampare, and the Police Management Board have dedicated Sunday, November 24, to visiting churches to preach peace before, during, and after the December 7 elections. Addressing a congregation at the Church of Pentecost in the Accra New Town, the IGP entreated the church to continue praying for peace, but importantly emphasized that their prayers should be backed with action. He called on everyone to assist the police in enhancing security, law, and order to make the 2024 general elections the most peaceful in the history of Ghana.
We are here for a very simple message. First of all, to come and join you this morning with some of my colleagues at the very highest level of the police of the institution, to come and join you this morning to glorify God and thank Him for His goodness and mercy towards us individually and this country that we call our home, Ghana. We are saying that if we were to take our time and count our many blessings and name them one by one, we will be very surprised how far God has brought us as a country. And it is for that reason that we want to join you today in glorifying Him and thanking Him for all that He did for us as a country. The second reason is also to come and say thank you to all of you in connection with these upcoming elections. The way we have allowed ourselves to be used as a vessel by the good Lord in conducting ourselves in a manner that has led to a situation where so far with all the election processes we've not heard anything. Nothing has happened beyond us, such that the peace we are experiencing during this election period has never happened before. It's because of the good Lord, His mighty hand upon our country, and we allowing ourselves as a vessel for His use. So we came also to thank each and every one of you, and also the collective body of Christ, be the church across the country. The third reason is also to appreciate you for your prayers towards us. Your prayers for us has made a lot of difference in the work that we do in protecting the nation and preparing the election such that it will be the most peaceful in the history of this country.
That's all for the headlines this morning. This is the Poll Center, your credible election guide, and here we say votes, not violence. We'll be here soon with ABC in the morning. Stay with us.
Mid-year budget review with some key allocations.
We are currently here at Commission.
When the news breaks, we are there. In the heart of matters arising, we follow through with the right question. Don't miss a beat with our in-depth news analysis. From breaking news, special feature stories, latest news, we bring you the stories that matter. Our team of immersed reporters bring you the news as it happens. Join us every 6 a.m., 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. each day for a comprehensive look at the stories beyond the headlines.
3, 2, 1.
You're watching ABC News GH.
ABC News GH, your trusted source for news.
Mid-year budget review with some key allocations.
We are currently here at Commission.
When
This is where the headlines are probed. Policies scrutinized through an objective lens with an unbiased approach to every discussion. Key in to a series of pulsating conversations with the hard questions.
Why do you still want to run when you have failed?
I haven't. What do you mean by failed?
In-depth analysis of policy proposals.
If it is a temporary program, why do we want to still create another gold reserve exchange program also to address a temporary issue?
If you introduce a temporary measure and you realize that the temporary measure works and is sustainable, you have to rethink whether or not it should just be temporary.
And every agenda and positions intellectually debated to set the record straight.
Look, you still don't answer the question now.
Good.
Question is, if Article 78(1) is anything to go by, your ministers of state largely are supposed to come from the parliament.
Yes.
The law says that not less than 10 and not more than 19. So these are your cabinet, your ministers of state you're going to get. How do you intend to resolve? Have you thought about managing that head-up?
Absolutely. If I hadn't, I probably would not get on the fray to do this.
On Focus on ABC, we focus on the matter, the personality, and the answer beyond the rhetoric. Focus on ABC shows every Thursday at 7 p.m. only on ABC News Ghana Television.
You can advertise your brand or business on ABC News GH Television. Call us on 030-278-8645 or 050-993-0360 to secure your slot.
Good morning and welcome to ABC in the Morning, live on ABC News GH. We are streaming on our YouTube channel. The channel is ABC News GH. Our website is www.abcnewsgh.com, and our socials where we want you to get interactive with us there at ABC News GH _. This is ABC News, and we have the Poll Center here, your credible election guide. Everything you need about the elections, you want to be tuned in here to ABC News GH, and you won't be disappointed. At the Poll Center, we advocate for your votes and not violence. As we head into the elections, just a few days into the elections, please and please again, pay attention to your votes and do not be used as a conduit for any form of violence. We plead with you, your friends, and all of your loved ones to pay attention to your votes and your votes alone. Today on ABC in the Morning, we are bringing you so many conversations you would love. It is a brand new week. Today is the 25th of November in the year of our Lord 2024. It's going to be a wonderful week, and we will start with a great day today. So as you go into the day, I want to encourage you to keep your head up high and also think all of the positive thoughts you can think, and know that you can achieve everything you set your heart and your mind to. It is within your reach, and you would be able to achieve that. Let's take a short break. When we are back, Front Story. Story. What are we looking at? Ghana and Africa's take home from the just ended COP29. We will discuss what it is in for Ghana, and we'll look at Ghana's progress in addressing climate change and how we can improve our efforts following the successful completion of COP29 in Baku in Azerbaijan. The Conference of Parties this year primarily centered around climate financing, with a new global financial target to channel some $1.3 trillion of climate finance to developing countries by 2035. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo delivered a speech at the COP29 UN Climate Summit, which took place on Tuesday, November 12, 2024 in Azerbaijan. COP29 is over, with developing countries complaining that the $300 billion, about 240 billion euros a year in climate finance they will receive by 2035 is a paltry sum. Many of the rich country voices at the UN's climate conference were amazed that developing nations were unhappy with what on the surface seems a huge settlement. It is an improvement on the current contribution of $100 billion a year. However, the developing world, which had pushed for more, had many genuine issues with the final sum. There were complaints, and it was simply not enough, that it was a mixture of grants and loans, and countries were deeply annoyed by the way the wealthy waited until the last minute to reveal their hand. Ultimately, the developing world was compelled to accept it, with many rich countries pointing to next year's arrival of President Donald Trump, a known climate skeptic, and arguing that they would not get a better deal. But this package is also being criticized as short-sighted from the richer world's perspective. The argument runs that if you want to keep the world safe from rising temperatures, then wealthier nations need to help emerging economies cut their emissions, because that is where 70% of the growth in emissions has occurred in the past decade. New national plans are due to be published next spring to outline how every country will limit their planet's warming gases over the next 10 years. For Ghana, President Akufo-Addo's remarks at COP29 sparked significant critique from various groups and individuals who challenged the validity of his claims. In his speech, the president highlighted his administration's commitment to combating climate change to ensure a safer environment for future generations. He stated that Ghana aims to cut emissions by 64 million tons by 2030 and is seeking financial support of $10 billion to $15 billion. This announcement has ignited discussions regarding Ghana's climate change initiative, contrasting with what the president presented. We'll delve deeper into that, but before, let's hear what he had to say at COP29.
Our lands and future generations. We're here to declare, President of the Republic of Ghana. Today we gather not merely as leaders or policymakers, but as individuals bound by our love for our lands and future generations. We're here to declare we stand in solidarity for a green world. For Ghana, climate change is real and immediate, affecting our farmers, coastlines, and communities. Rising temperatures and unpredictable weather threaten our livelihoods daily. Yet we respond with resilience and commitment. In 2021, Ghana submitted updated nationally determined contributions to the United Nations, encompassing 47 programs to mitigate and adapt to climate impacts. Our goal is to cut emissions by 64 million metric tons by 2030, demanding investments between 10 and 15 billion United States dollars. Despite financial and technical hurdles, we're determined to meet the Paris Agreement's goals across agriculture, transport, forestry, energy, and other sectors. We have made strides. The Green Ghana project has planted 50 million trees, and forest restoration efforts have covered 721,000 hectares since 2017 when I came to office. 13 mitigation actions have cut annual greenhouse gas emissions by 43% since 2021. Ghana's national electric vehicle policy, backed by tax incentives, promotes sustainable mobility in our energy.
After the speech by the president at the summit, so many critiques arose, and the Coalition Against Galamsey strongly criticized the president's speech. And according to them, the speech by the president contradicts the government's record of inaction, which has led to the alarming rise in illegal and irresponsible mining across the country. The situation which has resulted in the destruction of forests and agricultural lands, our rivers, and our water bodies. Let's have a conversation with Daryl Bosu, who is the Deputy National Director for Arucha Ghana. Good morning, Daryl. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning to you as well, and I believe you're great.
Fine, thank you. Let's pick your initial thoughts about the completion of COP29. In your perspective, what were your key takeaways from the summit?
Great. So I think that COP29 was one that was expected to bring a lot of, I would say, positive outcomes, because this particular COP was dubbed the Climate Finance COP, meaning that countries, the 195 countries that signed on to the Paris Agreement when they're expecting a lot of climate finance, particularly for developing countries, to be able to realize certain financial goals to deal with the climate, clean energy transition, to also be able to adapt and build resilience, to also be able to meet the cost associated with the loss and damage of climate that is currently happening, and then also to ensure that there is just transition. We are all talking about the fossil fuel dependence of countries and how that is contributing to significant emissions. The global community is now looking at stepping down or moving away from fossil fuel and transitioning to renewable energy or low emissions development. So that means that to make that happen, we needed finance for countries like Africa, other least developing countries, to shift from dependence on fossil fuels to things like solar, wind energy. All of that will need finance. Everybody was expecting a lot of finance. And from experts, high-level expert groups, and in terms of what is needed for the shift to happen, and it was projected that Africa or the developing countries would need about $1.3 trillion dollars for that shift to happen. But interestingly, the discussion closed off yesterday early. They are about 4 hours ahead of us. It closed off with just about $300 billion right up to 2035. And this is what so far has been seen as insufficient. And if you really look at the expected target of $1.3 trillion and $300 billion a year by 2035, this is wholly inadequate. And it's therefore one that has brought a lot of, I would say, rejection and very strong, unusually very strong wording by proponents and also by delegates at the COP. Also, there was a discussion that was supposed to look at how we ensure that the various nationally determined contributions by countries were made a bit ambitious. But you now understand why, if countries are not willing to really up their game in terms of how they take action nationally to deal with emissions, you can't blame them, because the international community, when I say international community here, I'm talking about developed countries. They, like the US, like China and Europe, who have had the opportunity to develop their economies burning fossil fuel, are not willing to make the necessary climate finance commitments. So if developing countries are also not going to up their game in terms of low emissions development, then you wouldn't blame them. And that is why some people have said that, why stop Africa from developing? So it's really an issue that is still very much trending since yesterday, after the conference came to an adjournment to COP30 in Brazil. So I believe that so far it's not been as promising and as positive as it has been expected. And this is where I think that every country now is more like each one for himself and God for us all, because if you don't take action at your country level, the international community is not going to pitch in as has been expected. So we really have a lot to do for ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves before we start looking at the international community.
Darryl, one thing that is prominent in all of these discussions is the fact that international communities have taken advantage of whatever is in their country to develop. But now that Africans also want to take advantage of theirs, international communities want to halt it, so that Africa becomes the greenhouse of the world. Do you believe, or do you agree with those who say that, well, if you are taking advantage of your resources to develop, then don't place sort of an embargo or don't restrict the Africans from also doing what they have to do? In all of these conversations, would you think, do you think that those who propose that have any leg to stand on?
Yes, I mean, you would make that argument if climate was segregated and the weather effect and impact was segregated to the countries where those impacts were being felt. For example, if US is burning fossil fuels and the fossil fuels just stay, the emissions just affect people in the US, or China is the leading emitter of emissions, if all the effects of climate affect just China, then you can make this argument. But the weather has no boundaries. And we are all sharing in a global weather system that if China is emitting, the US is emitting, eventually it's going to affect all of us. And the research and the science shows that if the temperature rises beyond 1.5 by 2030, by 2035, Africa and least developed countries, or countries that are really at the risk of being submerged by, we call them small island states, are going to be at higher risk because their countries are going to be submerged by water, and millions of people are going to die, both in Africa and all of some of these things. So even though you want to keep burning, at the end of the day, you are going to be at higher risk. So that's why I think that we cannot stand on that argument and say, let's do what we want. Let's not take action. Let's also do and behave as though the world is not on fire. At the moment, our global community, our shared global community is burning. And if you don't take action, we in Africa, we in the developed countries, we in the small island state, we are going to be at higher risk. It is now too late to take that side of the argument and say, they did their ban, let us also ban. I believe that we need to take up this action for climate by ourselves. We cannot rely on them. They are supposed to make the necessary financial commitment. They are not. And that is why I always say that if you are as a seller, you have resources to sell to the West, to sell to the developing countries, you need to be very, very careful, because at the end of the day, if there are any negative repercussions, they are not going to help you to resolve them. You need to take action to guarantee the well-being of your people first, before you think that, oh, it is going to benefit our economy, it will sell more gold by destroying our communities, by destroying our rivers. The responsibility lies with us first as a people before we think of the economic benefits we are going to get from the international community. So I think that it is no longer tenable to be making those arguments, considering the fact that we are going to be most affected if the global weather system keeps changing and keeps getting worse and worse as we're experiencing now.
In order to rely on ourselves and take up the climate issues on our own, how are we going to be able to develop, and also how to develop in this aspect in a way that we are not dependent on the global community or the richer nations? Because obviously in this conversation they raised concerns that this money was not enough. The argument that came was that very soon Donald Trump, who is a skeptic about global issues, global warming issues and climate issues, is going to be president, and Africa may not even see this amount of money we are looking at. So it is to speak that be grateful you are getting this sum, because very soon you may not even get up to this sum. How can we position ourselves so that we are not reliant on the richer nations to be able to fund the climate issues that we need to fund?
Yes, so I think before I respond to that directly, what is uncompromising, and a position that all of us need to take, is that the developed countries have an obligation, and this is an obligation that is well etched in the convention, UNFCCC, and that convention stipulates that because countries have had the advantage and have contributed to emissions, which is leading to the global climate shifts, they need to contribute. So this action to contribute is not negotiable, and they need to contribute. It is sad to see that we are not getting their commitments as it should. Yes, you are right. And Donald Trump has been elected president of the United States, and he has already indicated that he is going to, again, like he did before, take the U.S. out of the convention, and he's no longer going to be committed. So we expect the finance to go down. But I think we are seeing also countries like UK, the EU, and also Australia stepping up. This cannot compare to the previous climate leadership that the U.S. was offering. But I believe that going forward, we really need to keep pushing. And this is not going to be the final decision, even though right now we know that It's been announced. Between now and Brazil, I'm sure there's going to be further discussions on it and whether there's going to be an increase or not. This is something that is still early days, but at the moment, we don't have $3 billion a year. It's insufficient, insignificant to the real investment that is needed. But, I mean, that brings us to what exactly then we can do. Ghana, as you know, has preferred to implement what we call the Climate Prosperity Plans, which came from the Climate Vulnerable Forum, which we recently chaired. And then also we have the nationally determined contributions with actions that we ourselves are going to do and actions that we also need financing. I think for us, what the advantage we have is that we in Africa have for a long time been more or less had what we call nature-based solutions. We've had our forests, we've had our rivers, and these are very, very essential to building resilience, and also coping with the increasing temperature rises. So if we destroy these natural safeguards, then we are really putting our communities and our people at higher risk. And that's why I believe that if there's anything we can do, Africa and even Ghana needs to be very, very careful how we trade our safeguard system, because we think that they also have certain revenue resources that can help us leverage economic development. I have said and time and again that if Ghana can develop without necessarily destroying all our rivers, all our forest reserves, because these forest reserves are critical safeguards for ensuring that we are able to micromanage the temperature exposures that we are going to be experiencing in the years to come. Again, we will need to ensure that there is water sufficiency, water provisioning. If water scarcity goes up, as we are going to experience with this illegal mining being on escalating as it is, then it means that communities are going to struggle even to meet basic necessities of life, like water and food. That will already increase our vulnerability, and then you will say that you need international support to come help us cope with climate change. And this is why I think that we as countries need to put the well-being of our citizens first, do what we can locally and internally before we even think of going to the international community, because clearly they are not willing to put in the needed effort. They are better off, they have the capacity to adapt, but they are not willing to take care of us or not willing to contribute to addressing a global issue that they have contributed to. So I believe that the responsibility lies with all of us as countries to ensure that before we negotiate and sell off our safeguards to the international community, we have really done some very serious introspection and reflection on how we sustain the resilience and capacity of our citizens to adapt to the changing climate in the years to come.
Errol, you expressed disappointment over the president's speech at the COP29. Why do you believe the president's speech fell short in addressing the issues of illegal mining and its impact on climate change?
Yes, I think that's thank you very much for that. You know, as we all agree that yes, we are a developing country. We need to leverage our natural resources for development. And if you listen to the president on November 12th at Baku addressing world leaders, he did acknowledge our needs. He did acknowledge our challenges, and he also talked about the progress we have made. But we are also concerned that when transparency and accountability is one of the key tenets and principles of COP29, we expected the president to have been very, I would say, transparent in terms of the bigger challenges we are facing as a country. And because once you start talking about forest conservation or forest restoration, as he did in his statement, when he quoted that, and during his tenure, 720,000 hectares of land has benefited from forest restoration. It's not as simple as he said it, because as we know, putting out those figures should have also then solicited, he also indicating the challenges, because we believe that that number that he put out does not reflect the true situation we have in Ghana. As you know, yes, it might seem that we have planted 720,000 hectares of forest, but in actual fact, if you look at the degradation as a result of the illegal mining affecting our cocoa farms, affecting our farms, and also affecting our forest reserves and all of that, we cannot really be very happy and say that we've made progress. We think that considering the significant damage to our forest reserves, now with not less than 350,000 forest ecosystems at risk of ecological integrity being compromised, we cannot say that we should be very happy for the president to say that they have achieved 720,000 hectares of restoration success within the period that he took office, because that is not the true figure. And we believe that if the president really means what he's saying about being committed and being worried about the future we leave for our children, then that is not something to say, and he could have done better than that.
Okay. The president could have done better than that. Thank you for your time this morning, Daryl. The COP29 conversation is extensive.
Thank you so much.
We're looking forward to delve deeper into it for more clarity.
Thank you so much.
Daryl Bosu is the Deputy National Director for Arocha Ghana. This conversation on COP29, Ghana and Africa's take home from the summit. He believes that the finance allocated to Africa is wholly inadequate, and on our part as Ghana, he believes the president could have done better by being transparent about the bigger issues we are facing here as a country when it comes to climate issues. And if the president means what he's saying about thinking about the future, thinking about the future he will leave for the children to come, then he should have been more transparent at the summit, since the summit also hinges on transparency and what is indeed happening in the various countries. That's all for Front Story. When we are back, sports is up next. Derek Kumiki Seydou is on hand to bring us the latest in sports.
This is where the headlines are probed, policies scrutinized through an objective lens with an unbiased approach to every discussion. Key in to a series of pulsating conversations with the hard questions.
Why do you still want to run when you have failed?
I haven't. What do you mean by failed?
In-depth analysis of policy proposals.
If it is a temporary program, why do we want to still create another gold reserve exchange program also to address a temporary issue?
If you introduce a temporary measure and you realize that the temporary measure works and is sustainable, you have to rethink whether or not it should just be temporary.